Good morning. It's not just going to be me moving along to driving songs, but that is one of my favourite songs to road trip to. So I thought it was appropriate to start the broadcast with that. So welcome. Good morning. Hope it's nice and sunny where you are. It's lovely and sunny here. Today I'm going to talk to you about my upcoming Arizona road trip. I say upcoming, we will be there exactly 1 year today, although it feels like it's going to be quicker because there really isn't anything much happening between now and then. So a year, I imagine, will go by in the blink of an eye. This is being broadcasted via an app called StreamYard. So if you want to comment, hello, Karina, please do so in the comments in Facebook and they will pop up. You need to give permission to StreamYard in order for me to see your name. You don't have to do it, but just be aware that if you don't, I won't know who you are. So I'll say hello, or I'll answer your question, but I may not necessarily know who you are. So yeah. Post away. It'd be great to see, you know, if you are listening, just say hello so that I know that I'm not just talking to myself. This is going to be a deep dive. This is not going to be a quick run through. I don't do anything quickly. And this is like very in-depth detail about the trip that we're going to do in. I anticipate it's probably going to take me about an hour. So I do appreciate that you may not necessarily want to sit through the whole thing or all in one go, or there may just be sections you're interested in. That's absolutely fine. Or you want to, you know, kind of watch it on replay. If you are watching on replay, welcome. Just drop me a note so that I know that you saw it, and maybe a question or a comment would be really helpful. So just going to set the scene really. This trip is going ahead in Easter 2022. We are going for 15 nights actually, 15 nights to Arizona. We're renting a motorhome for 14 of those nights. Myself, my husband and my daughter Harriet, who's 7, she'll be 8 at the time. We are going to travel around Arizona for those 14 days and see as much as we can. Why did I choose Arizona? Well, I love the Southwest of America anyway. I used to live on the Arizona-Utah border, so I know some of these areas very, very well. I wanted to introduce Harriet to some of these places because I think that she's at the age now where she can start to enjoy some of the outdoor experiences. Also, I felt that in comparison with other places that I also want a road trip to, so Southern Utah, maybe the Northwest USA, I want to go back to Florida and sort of Southern Florida and do that again. There's a lot of family activities and things that children would enjoy in this itinerary. And that's not to say it's not great for adults. I think there's something for everyone, but I think it's a really family friendly itinerary. And I know there's things that she would enjoy. So that's why it seemed like the natural fit really. We're going in Easter because that is absolutely a perfect time to go to Arizona. I'm just going to mention a little bit about the weather. It is not always hot, but it is sometimes very hot. So Arizona weather is really variable. In the winter, it's mostly mild and you can enjoy sun all through the year. They have like 320 days of sunshine or whatever in Southern Arizona. So a great time to go in the winter, but it can get insanely hot in the summer. So you're talking about Phoenix being over 40 degrees every single day during July and August, at least. It's a dry heat, however, for most of us, that is just too hot. There are areas of the state that aren't that hot. So Flagstaff, which I will talk a little bit about later, is 7,000 feet above sea level. It's much cooler in the summer. It's cold in the winter. It has a snow season, ski season. So, you know, you can be in the sun in the south one day and then skiing in Flagstaff the next day. So Arizona has a massive range of weather systems. The Grand Canyon in particular is one place that is also quite high above sea level at the rim. And so it can be cold at the rim, and yet people hiking at the bottom, it's, you know, 25 degrees. So you just need be a little bit careful about when you choose to travel. But I think spring and autumn, you won't go far wrong, but you will need to bring pretty much all the clothes that you own for every season, you know, to make sure that you can kind of adapt, or you'll just buy it there because, you know, it's America. You can buy whatever you like. You can fly directly into Arizona from the UK. You can fly to Phoenix from Heathrow. The moment BA are flying a direct flight there. There may be others, but obviously with the pandemic, things have changed. There may be new flights. Flights may disappear. But as we stand at the moment, BA fly directly into Phoenix. And it's about a 10.5-hour flight, which is actually pretty pretty easy. You know, I've done it several times. Fly in and you're there ready to go. I'm going to talk through my itinerary in a second. In fact, I think I'll share my screen now and show you, see how this technology works. Oh, maybe that's a better one for you to see. So I put together this lovely diagram for you to be able to see the route that I have put together. This is a route I have crafted myself. I have not been able to find this route elsewhere. I don't understand why. I think this is the ultimate Arizona driving route. Lots of people put together routes that take in much more for 14 days, or they just put together sort of, you know, short sections. But I think this is the perfect itinerary. There are things that you won't get to see on this trip, but there are so many things that you can see on this trip. I think if you've never been there before, or even if you have been before like me, this is a really great place to start. In terms of driving times, almost all the driving destinations that I talk about sort of day to day are probably less than a 3-hour drive between different locations. And the only one that is more than that is Tucson to Holbrook, which is about 4.5 hours. That's going to be a whole day of driving. The rest of them, much shorter days. And I've tried to kind of build in time for us to not feel like we're driving, you know, a massive distance. I'm going to talk about this itinerary because this is what we've booked for motorhoming. If you're going to do this in the car and stay in different locations, you may not necessarily want to stop as often as we are, because when you're in the motorhome, obviously you're taking all your things with you. You don't have to keep unpacking. This has 9 stops, so that may be a little bit too much for a road trip, but the same route could apply, but I'd probably help you to kind of condense it down a little bit. So essentially, we're looking at starting in Phoenix. You have to spend 1 night in the local city if you hire a motorhome. And I am going to talk about motorhoming on Monday. I'm going to talk much more in detail about what a motorhoming trip in America looks like. But this is specifically going to look today about Arizona, what Arizona has to offer. You could do it by motorhome, you could do it by car. But if you do go by motorhome, you have to stay 1 night after your flight. Nobody wants you renting an RV after a 10-hour flight when you think it's 2 in the morning and it's really sort of 5 in the afternoon. So we're going to stay there for 1 night, and then we're going to drive short journey, about an hour, to Picacho, which is kind of north of Tucson, just for 1 night there, and then 2 nights in Tucson itself. Tucson sort of spans this whole area here. I'm going to break down each place into detail and show you the different things that you can do in or near that location. After Tucson, we're going to take the 4.5-hour drive up to Holbrook. That will be one of the days where it's just going to be a driving day. We're going to take it slow, stop for lunch, stop for a break, have a little walk, visit a few towns, you know, a really lovely day of driving. Beautiful scenery. It's quite mountainous in this area, but it's going to be, you know, just kind of a driving day. But all other days are going to have like more specific attractions in. Then spend 2 nights in Holbrook. You'll see, this is sort of a figure of 8 loop. So if you start down here, and we're going to go up, around and back down. So we're going to pass through Flagstaff twice, but we're not going to stop on the first time. We're going to stop later on. We're going to spend a night in Williams and then a night at the Grand Canyon. Going to drive up to Page, Arizona, which is on the Utah border, for 3 nights. Now, the reason I've chosen to stay here for 3 nights is because I used to live in Page and I want to kind of spend a bit more time there. However, when we get to talk to that bit, you'll see there's a lot of stuff to do there. But I also think if you're doing a road trip of any kind, you should have maybe one time where you do a longer break. You'll just need it to rest from all the driving. So if you can block in, you know, 3 or so days somewhere, I think that's helpful. This is sort of in the middle of our trip, so I think that'll be the perfect opportunity to have a little bit of a rest. Then drive down to Flagstaff, where we'll spend the night, on to Sedona for 2 nights, and then the final night is going to be just outside Phoenix at the Lost Dutchman State Park, because we've got to get the RV back at 11 o'clock the next morning and then catch our flight. So want to be super close on the first day and the last day in case there's any issues. You don't want to be caught in traffic or anything. So that's the outline of the itinerary, and I will refer back to this later on. If anybody has any questions, please pop them in the comments. As I said at the beginning, I don't know if you missed it, because this is being powered by StreamYard, I won't necessarily see your name if you haven't given StreamYard permission, but, you know, please post comments, say hello, or ask any questions at any time. Again, if you're on replay, also ask some questions. Okay, let's move on. So Okay, so we're going to talk about Picacho and Tucson. I've grouped them together because they're essentially one place. Several different places we're going to look at here. Arizona Sonoran Desert Museum, great for kids. Saguaro National Park, the Air and Space Museum, San Javier del Bac Mission, and the fact that Tucson is a UNESCO City of Gastronomy. And I'm going to just look at those individually. So the Arizona Sonoran Desert Museum, it's one of the best reviewed attractions in Arizona, and it's kind of well renowned really. It's an animal park, a natural history museum, a botanical gardens, and it's quite big. So it's like 96 acres of land, and they've got 230 species of animals and mammals, plants, and reptiles and things, and 1,200 species of native plant. This is one of the places, if you go to Tucson, everyone says that you must visit. Brilliant for children, also suitable for adults, but really kind of a great family attraction. We will definitely be going here. The next sort of place in Tucson, which is a must-do, is a Saguaro National Park. Now, this is home to the world's largest cacti. I have been talking to Harriet about this, and she regales me with the fact that I told her, which is that these large cacti don't get an arm until they're at least 100 years old. So you can see how old some of these plants might be. Saguaro National Park really celebrates the cactus. It's spread over 2 sites, one east and one west of Tucson, which is quite unusual for a national park. Really interesting to visit both sections, and the perfect time to do that is sort of at sunset, where you can see the cactus sort of off the back, sort of silhouetted by the sun, which was in the picture that I had earlier. So really interesting place to see. As you'll see going on, I love a national park. Arizona is full of national parks, state parks, national park monuments, recreation areas. So really somewhere brilliant to visit all those places. Just a side point, really, if you do travel somewhere like this, you can get a national park pass, which allows you to kind of pay once and get into all of the national park areas for free. The Pima Air and Space Museum is probably not somewhere we will visit because I don't think we're going to have time. But if you are interested in air, it is somewhere really really great to visit. It's the largest non-government funded aviation and space museum in the world, and it's got 400 historic aircraft, from a Wright Flyer to a 787 Dreamliner. So if you've got an interest in aircraft, definitely the place to visit. In Tucson, there are a number of different missions. The most famous and most visited is San Javier del Bac Mission. It's a Catholic mission, and it was founded in sort of 1682, but the current church was built in 1783, and it's the oldest intact European structure in Arizona. Now, the Americans love anything that's old, and as far as American goes, this is very old. And it dates back from when Arizona was part of New Spain. It's still a working church. There's no fee to enter, but they do appreciate donations because it is under constant renovation when funds allow. In 1887, it was partly damaged by an earthquake, and then in 1939 it was struck by lightning. So it's a miracle that it's still standing. But yeah, if you're interested in a kind of religious buildings or, you know, history and culture, this is a must-see visit. And then Tucson itself, I mentioned earlier, is a UNESCO City of Gastronomy. It was the first city to be given that designation in the US. And it recognises the 4,000 years of agricultural heritage in this area and the unique mix of cultures from the Mexican people that came up from Mexico or that were living there from the Mexican area, and Native American culture, and how that's reflected in their food. And the fact that they use what they have in the desert in their food. So, you know, prickly pear and cactus and things feature in a lot of the food. But, you know, a really amazing place to get something to eat. When I was talking to Leighton about this yesterday, I kind of ran through this with him. He's mainly interested in what we're going to eat. So I think he's going to be happy when we're in Tucson. So we're going to leave the Tucson area now and drive that 4.5 hours to the small town of Holbrook. Just a bit of a, just to show you on the map. So Holbrook is here, and we'll be and then we'll be moving to Williams. I'm going to categorize these two places together because, again, they are similar in the sense that this is part of the old Route 66. So there's a number of attractions along this road that I'm going to talk about, as well as attractions in both areas, so that you can see there. So things to look at in or near Holbrook and Williams is the Meteor Crater, which you can see pictured there. I'll talk about in a second. Petrified National Forest. There are any number of abandoned towns and truck stops and weird half-built things on the side of the road. It's on Route 66. And then the final thing I'm going to talk about is Bearizona, which in a way was kind of what started this whole trip off. So, sorry, I was going to talk about the Meteor Crater. So this is a picture of the Meteor Crater. 49,000 years ago, a meteor around 50 meters wide crashed into the Colorado Plateau, and 175 million tons of rock was displaced. This crater has been eroded slightly, but it is nearly a mile wide and 570 foot deep. You can visit this, and as well as seeing the crater, you can also explore the visitor center, which has details about the crater and what sort of happened in the last sort of decades since it's been an attraction, and a bit of a history and a geography about the site itself, and a 4D film that's kind of suitable for all the family. You can also take a partial rim tour with a guide to tell you a little bit more about the area. This is Harriet's #1 attraction. She's absolutely obsessed about things that came from space. So this is #1 on her list of things. She was so excited when I said we would be going here. Then we're going to move on to the Petrified Forest National Park. Now, the Petrified Forest is named for these large deposits of petrified wood. These were formed when trees fell about 225 million years ago into waterlogged sediment. It's a complicated process, but essentially the cells in the plants were replaced by minerals through a kind of biological process. And it preserves the structure of the trees. So they look very much like they did, but they're actually now stone instead of wood. There's one section of the park that is dedicated to this. You can walk along paths and see them very close up. You're not allowed to take anything away, although you can buy in a number of different gift shops small pieces. But there's a whole other section of the park, which is part of the Painted Desert. And this is colourful badlands, which are these strange looking mounds. They look like they've just kind of been dumped on the side of the road. A badland is a soft rock which is eroded by wind and water, characterized by the steep sides and lack of vegetation. So you see them in several places in the US, but this is one place that you can see them. They usually have colourful bandings where you can see the different kinds of rock material. I don't think this picture, or any picture really, does it justice, but something to see in real life. I think people have said it's very impressive. Despite the fact this looks like quite an inhospitable environment, there are over 400 species of plants here, and loads of animals, including pronghorn deer, bobcats, coyotes, snakes, lizards, and 200 species of birds. So if you're an animal lover, then this is also an interesting place. Once we've visited there, we'll stay overnight, and then we'll head back across that road, that Route 66 road, the road that follows Route 66. And across that road, you will see a number of abandoned towns, including the Twin Arrows trading post. You can stop at these. They're not necessarily marked. You can download lists off the internet of where they are. This particular one was a trade-in stop when Route 66 was at its heyday, but because there now is an interstate which kind of bypasses this, it's just been left to abandon. But you can go and have a look, but you just be careful because they're not in any way sanitized. So if there's rocks or glass or anything, they are there. But some people love this kind of like side of the road creepy places. And another one which I couldn't get a photo of is called Meteor City, which is quite near to the Meteor Crater, and that was an abandoned trading post also, and it was featured in the movie Starman briefly, and it was once home to the world's largest dream catcher, but that's no longer there. You can again go and visit it. Some bits are blocked off, you just have to take care, and apparently it's one of the most haunted places in Arizona, so if you like things like that, then that might be a place for you to visit. As I've mentioned a few times, this section is follows the old Route 66. There is an I-40 now runs on that road. There are sections of the route that you can still drive on, and they are signposted off the main road, and you might want to do that. Along the route, there are several towns, so Holbrook being one, Winslow being another, Flagstaff, which we'll talk about later, and Williams. All those are Route 66 towns, and you can stop in them and get some of the Route 66 fix, pick up some memorabilia, a T-shirt, have your picture taken, etc. Winslow's quite interesting because it has the standing on the corner that was featured in the Eagles song Take It Easy. So if you listen to the lyrics, it talks about standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. And that is the corner, and you can stop and have your photo taken. There's also a Route 66 museum in Flagstaff that you can visit. And Pete's 66 gas station museum in Williams is another iconic site. And I said I was going to talk about Bearizona, which basically sort of started this trip because I saw somebody mention it on a blog, and I thought, oh, that's something that Harriet would like. And I thought, oh, I wonder if there's what we could do in Arizona that she would really love. And so this was kind of where it all started, really. This is a drive-through wildlife park. Think Longleat in Arizona, and it's got natural sort of native North American animals as opposed to animals brought in from other countries. So it has a section which is like a safari, and then a section where you can kind of see animals up closer. And in the safari section, they've got, the big North American animals like wolves, bison, black bears, and then a section which has got a petting zoo, creepy critters, and a nursery for the little baby black bears, which I'm very excited to see. So I think this is like a full-on family attraction, which, if you go with kids, you should definitely go to. Okay, so moving on. And now, sort of from Williams, it's about an hour to get to the Grand Canyon National Park. I've spoken about the Grand Canyon quite a few times. I've been there 4 times. 3, 5. I've been there a few times. And it is definitely somewhere worth visiting. It is probably what people think of when they think of a trip to Arizona. It is not necessarily the best place to visit in Arizona. It is amazing, but there are loads of other amazing places, which I think I will demonstrate, and hopefully I've demonstrated. But it is definitely worth a visit. And if you are going to Arizona, you should go to the Grand Canyon. I would advise you definitely stay overnight, at least one night, because you want to see sunset and you want to see sunrise, and you can only really do that if you stay in or close to the park. If you're driving, I would recommend staying in one of the national park lodges. If you're RVing, stay in one of the national park campsites. They book up incredibly early, so if you are doing a last-minute trip, you might be stuck with what's left. But if you're planning in advance, this is what we need to book first. Like, this is the most important thing to get these reservations, because they are hard to come by. And although there's a small town outside of the gate, it probably is about a 20-minute journey, and you're going to want to be there for sunset. When we go in April, sunrise. When we go in April, the sunrise before 6 a.m. In August is going to be even earlier than that. So if you go anytime in sort of between spring and the autumn, you're not going to want to drive 20 minutes at 5:30 in the morning in order to get to sunrise. Well, you might, but it probably wouldn't be that fun. I would also recommend there's loads of things you can do in the Grand Canyon, probably a day's worth of activities. Walk the rim trail, get down under the rim a little. Just be really careful, because you must follow the instructions that they give you. It is a very dangerous place. Hiking and walking in Arizona is not like being in Wales. Even going up Pennaman or Snowdon, people make mistakes. These environments are incredibly inhospitable. They don't have facilities. You won't be able to buy water. You'll need to take everything you need with you. The sun is very powerful, and you can easily get sunburn or sunstroke. So just follow the rules to the exact. You can't hike down into the canyon even a short distance with a 500 ml bottle of water. You need gallons per person, and you need proper footwear, and you need proper sun protection. And so just follow the rules. And then the other things that are really great to visit is the visitor centre, which is really interesting. The rangers do lots of interpretive programs. They do rim talks on the rim. We've been there before, and they've had like amphitheatres inside and out where they've done presentations, sometimes on a big screen, about the history of the park or the wildlife, or, you know, all different things. And they'll run them over a programme. So when you go there, you'll be able to see what's going on. And we've always really enjoyed those. The National Park Service also have a junior ranger program, and I really hope Harriet wants to do it, because they can buy like little cute hats and stuff to wear, and they have like a pack where you can kind of fill in different things. So yeah, definitely do that. You can drive to a lot of the Grand Canyon. There's a section in the middle called the Grand Canyon Village, and that's where most people park. And along the east rim, there are points where you can stop and look into the canyon. The western area, not to be confused with Grand Canyon West, but the western area of Grand Canyon National Park is not accessible to cars. They have a shuttle bus, which is free. If that's running, obviously COVID withstanding, you can take that to some other viewpoint which you can't get to any other way. And I would recommend not just going to have one look and saying, oh yes, isn't that lovely, but you know, trying to see it from a number of different angles, because you will struggle to get a perception of how very big this canyon is. It will feel like you're looking at like a projection or a screen. You can't get any depth perception of how big it is, but seeing it from different angles, you can get a bit of a better kind of understanding. And when we leave and down that kind of eastern driveway, it's quite a few miles, and there's a number of different stops, and then you can see different points, including one I'll show you in a second. So this is just a sunset photo over the canyon, which is nice. And then, yeah, so the furthest point you can get before you leave the park is Desert View Point. This is called the Desert View Watchtower. It's quite an iconic picture. You get a different view, almost like a setback view of the canyon, which is quite a nice viewpoint there. So definitely worth stopping. And they're all free. You can stop, you know, wherever there's a car park, you just pull up. Easy to park. And the other thing I would recommend you do is visit the El Tova Hotel, which is a historic hotel, and it was built in 1905, again, very old for America, and was one of the sort of first resort hotels in a national park, and started that whole trend of people holidaying in a national park. And it is an historic landmark in its own right, so definitely worth sticking your head in and having a little look. Page, Arizona, my spiritual home. This is where I used to live. I used to live and work. I lived and worked on the Arizona-Utah border for 2 summers. At Page was the nearest small town. So we're going to stay there for a few days. There is so much to see in this area. I've been watching a vlog yesterday of a couple who've decided to base themselves in this area for 2 months, because there's just so much you can do if you're the kind of person who likes to get out into the wilderness. But again, most of the things that are not guided tours are things you do at your own risk, and you have to make sure that you really carefully research what you do. The safety warning. So things to do in this area: Glen Canyon National Park, which formed Lake Powell, which I'll talk about in a second; Horseshoe Bend, incredibly famous and popular; Antelope Canyon; Vermilion Cliffs National Monument, and a bit about the Colorado River. So let's have a look. Ooh, Lake Powell, look how beautiful it is. So Glen Canyon National Recreation Area is a 170-mile long canyon carved by the Colorado River. It is upstream from the Grand Canyon. It is essentially the Grand Canyon light. In 1963, the Glen Canyon Dam was built to block the river and create Lake Powell. And that was for 2 reasons. One was to create power, and the other was to create a sustainable water stream for the neighboring states. Lake Powell is a what do they call it? Like an adventure playground. There's all sorts of activities you can do here. Houseboating is very, very popular. Basically an RV on the water. You can powerboat, water ski, tube, wakeboard, jet skis, kayak, and you can hike. You know, there are thousands of different hiking trails to get views all across this land. So if you like being outdoors, this is the place for you. Lake Powell has a coastline of 2,000 miles. I didn't say that wrong. 2,000 miles, which is more coastline than the entire western coast of the USA. Just think about that. It's because it's sort of like fingers, you know, it's long and it's got fingers sticking out because where all the different side canyons have been filled, and you can sort of get a sense of it from this picture. If you go, you can be like me in 1996 when I had a waist and visit the Rainbow Bridge National Monument. This is very difficult to get to, and the water is no longer where it is there. The water levels of Lake Powell vary to do with how much snow and melt they get and how much water is being used kind of the other end. So when I was there, it was at full pool, which is the most full they would allow it to get. It's way below that right now. And when you see some of the pictures, you'll see sort of a red color and then like a white color. And that's sort of the tide line almost between where the water level raises. When I was there, you could walk pretty much up to Rainbow Bridge, which is one of the largest natural bridges in the world. It looks big in this picture, but I don't know if you can see just here, there are some people. I'm not actually as close as I look. Those people, look how tiny they are, to give you like, they're like specks, to give you some sense of scale of how big this incredible rock formation is. And it's definitely worth a visit. But to get to this rock formation, you have to take a powerboat or a guided tour up Lake Powell for about 3 or 4 hours. You used to be able to just dock there and see it, but now you have to dock much further back and hike in. It's probably about a mile or so in each direction, depending on how high the water is. But really, you know, something that not many people get to see. So definitely worth a visit there. Horseshoe Bend. It's just on the road as you approach Page. When I was there, I've never visited. I lived in Page for like 7 months and I've been back twice and I've still never been to Horseshoe Bend. It was not a thing when I was there. I mean, people used to go and see it, but they didn't really have a proper car park. The trail wasn't marked. It was just like sand and people would walk it. But now it is like Instagram picture heaven. Definitely worth a visit. You do have to pay now to go into the car park. It's about $10. It's about a mile each way. Again, you know, if it's a hot day, go, you know, in the cooler times. Sunset and sunrise are the most popular because that's when you get the best light. So you can visit at other times and have less people there, or you can go when all the crowds are there and get the better photos. Or you can just download one off Instagram and tell people that you took it. Not that I'm not going to do that. Another really iconic thing to see in this area, I mean, so many iconic things in this area, people don't necessarily realize how close all these things are, is Antelope Canyon, or generally slot canyons. If you have not seen a slot canyon photo, you have not lived. Everywhere, like if you go any sort of photo gallery places, slot canyons feature all the time. They are genuinely as dramatic and beautiful as they look. The most popular is Antelope Canyon, and for a long while that was the main one that people go to. Antelope Canyon is run by the Navajo Nation, and they have an upper and a lower canyon which you can visit. When we were there, we just used to turn up, say, yeah, we'll go on the next tour, jump on the little bus, take us to the entrance, walk us through. Lovely. Now you need to book in advance. It is incredibly popular. Like Horseshoe Bend, it's become like an Instagram staple. You need to make sure that you book if this is something that you really want to do. It's not the only one. There are loads of others. There's Canyon X, Secret Canyon. Lots of people are running guided tours to other slot canyons. Buckskin Gulch is the biggest one. Again, very careful research needed for some of these. They are not suitable for everyone. Antelope Canyon is probably the most accessible for most people. If you are interested in visiting these, unlike most other red rock viewing, which is almost always sunset or sunrise to get the best colors, any of the slot canyons is midday. That's what you want, where you can see the light coming in here. You want to be able to see the light coming into the canyon, and that will kind of give you the different colors, the pinks, the reds, the purples, the yellows, whites. So go as close to midday as you possibly can. Is that all I had to say? Oh, yes. The other thing to know about this, with my safety head on, is slot canyons are very prone to flash flooding, and I mean they will fill up from the bottom to the top within seconds. If there is any chance of rain in like 100 miles, and I'm not being exaggerating, because the water just runs off the sandstone. If there's any chance of rain, you do not go to a slot canyon. Most places will close if they think there's a chance of flash flooding, but if you're doing something like this on your own, you really need to be very, very careful if there's any chance of rain. And while it doesn't often rain in Arizona, when it does rain, it rains hard. So safety hat on. Okay. The final thing to talk about in this area is the Vermilion Cliffs. Oh, actually, no, there's two more things. Another thing to talk about is the Vermilion Cliffs and the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. This is an area that protects the Vermilion Cliffs, the Coyote Butte and Pariah Canyon, which are other lovely places to visit. And I just do not have time to go into detail about all those things, except to mention the Wave, another Instagram staple. It's like Instagram a go-go in Page, or in the area around Page. This is really like popular. Again, was a place that people never bothered about when I lived there, but now is really, really popular. It is also very, very difficult to get to. You have to go every morning to apply for a visa or a permit. Sorry, they only allocate like 10 to 20 each day. Then you have to drive on a dirt road for 35 miles, and then you have to hike 3 miles to get there. So if this is on your list, this is the thing you need to prioritize, because it is quite hard to get to. But also check your rental bill or make sure your insurance isn't invalid. All the safety details here. And then the final thing to talk about, and I say the final thing, one of the best things, is the Colorado River and Glen Canyon Dam. So we talked a little bit about, I talked a lot about Glen Canyon Dam being the second largest, it's the second largest sort of concave dam in North America. It is 710 meters high. This image does not give you any scale of how big this is. When you are at the bottom like this, it's quite scary. Behind that is a wall of water, and you're in a tiny little boat sitting in the river. So you can visit in normal times inside the dam. You can actually go right down and see the turbines, the bottom. There's a visitor center, which is quite, worth a little visit. It's, half an hour or so. It gives you some history and geology of the area. And I love all that stuff, so that's quite nice. But my absolute favorite thing to do when I'm in this area is a Colorado River float trip. You come down in a bus, down inside this canyon here, and the bus sort of stops there, and you climb up and get down like a little metal staircase. And then you jump in a raft. This is smooth water rafting, not white water rafting. And you can float down the river on a half-day float trip to Lee's Ferry, which is basically the top of the Grand Canyon system. It was one of my absolute favorite things to do. I've done it 5 times, and I would do it again. It is super relaxing. It's incredible. At some points, the canyon walls are over 2,000 meters high. They are so high. It's really, it's really like, 2,000 feet high. 2,000 feet high? They're very high. They're very, very, very high. It is overwhelming how high they are. You feel very, very small. You will actually float through Horseshoe Bend. So I've been down around Horseshoe Bend that way 5 times. You can see Native American drawings, petroglyphs. You can see geology. You can actually see like strata in the rocks and places where earthquakes have broken up sections and fault lines. You can see wildlife, California condors. We saw an osprey, loads of like unusual bird life. There's the really small number of California condors, and they only live in this area. And this is one of the best places to see them. Again, they are huge, but they're so far up in the sky. They're like tiny little specks, and even with like a binoculars, you can barely see them, but very exciting when you do. So this is of all those things, this is my top recommendation. But I mean, where else do you need to go? You could spend a week in Page easily and do all these things. They are sometimes season dependent. I don't think the float trip will run during Easter. That water is very cold. Even in the height of summer, that water is too cold to stand in. I know, because I tried. So just to kind of reset a little bit and say like hi and thanks to anyone who's watching. If you've just joined me or you've joined me halfway through, we're going through all the details of my road trip, please drop me a comment. I might not necessarily see who you are because StreamYard doesn't always give people's names, but I would love to know if you're watching, or if you're watching on replay, give me a comment or a like or something to say that you were here. If you have a question, I'm happy to answer those as well. So just to kind of say where we are, really, we went from Phoenix to Tucson to Holbrook to Williams to the Grand Canyon to Page, and now we're sort of doubling back on ourselves a little and driving about 2.5 hours to Flagstaff. This road, this entire road that we're going to drive down and that we've partly driven up, is drives through those Vermilion Cliffs that I was talking about, and there are sections of really incredible scenery. The scenery driving around Arizona is beautiful anyway, but in some sections it really is quite impressive, and this is one of the sections. And then we're gonna stay in Flagstaff, and I'm going to talk to you about bits in that area. A couple of things I'm going to talk about, a couple of national monuments are sort of on the way down, so we'll drive down and we'll sort of stop off on the way to Flagstaff to kind of break the journey up a little bit, but I'll talk about those in a second. Okay. So Flagstaff, as I said, we'll pass through Flagstaff twice. Flagstaff's a really great place to base yourself. So if you're doing a driving trip rather than a motorhome trip, you could spend, we could design a trip, where you spend time in Page and time in Flagstaff, and time in Phoenix, and you could pretty much see everything in that northern part of Arizona, because within driving distance of Flagstaff are 7 national park designated locations, is that the word? Not necessarily just national parks, but within easy driving distance, we're talking like within an hour. So there's loads of stuff to do in Flagstaff, and while this trip, I've based it mainly on family. One of the things I did want to kind of raise was that Flagstaff is actually the craft brewery. What do they call it? Arizona's craft beer city. It's got a really impressive craft brewery scene, and they've won many national and international awards. They have a brewery trail that you can take and I thought maybe that was something that more for the adults. What I haven't mentioned, and I won't really talk about on this trip because it isn't covered by anything that I'm doing, is wine. Arizona is actually a really big wine growing region. It's got about 100 wineries, and there are plenty of places where you can do kind of wine tasting along with beautiful scenery. You can there's lots of different activities you can do, tours of vineyards and things. So if that's of interest to you, that's something else that you might want to do. So once you've enjoyed some of the craft brewery, what else can you do in Flagstaff? Well, the photo in the little photo here is of Wupakti National Monument, and that is a Native American archaeological site. It was built by the ancient Pueblo people, and they lived, farmed and traded on this community from around 500 AD. The peak of the time that they lived here was about 1064 AD, which links in with another monument, national monument, which is right next door. So this and Sunset Crater National Monument are in the same sort of driving loops. You come off the road, you drive through one, you drive through the other, back onto the main road. So easy to see them both in one go, and they are in some way intrinsically linked. So we're talking about Sunset Crater. It's an extinct volcanic cinder cone, and it's the youngest from the San Francisco volcanic field, which was active in this area. The last eruption, which is why I was saying linked to the sort of Pueblo monument, was in 1064, and the lava flows extended 10 miles in some directions, and a blanket of ash spread more than 2,100 square miles. But actually what it did was it made the land better for farming, so the local people gravitated to this area because the soil could hold more water with the ash than it did with the sandstone that was originally there. You can hike in this area. You can hike to the base of the cone. You can no longer hike up to the cone, but you can also see evidence of the lava fields. So these two little national monuments are quite close together. You won't need master time to see both of them, but quite interesting to stop. They both got a visitor centre. Have a little look, learn a little bit about the kind of history and culture, and then the geology and geography. So something for everyone. Then another national park site is Walnut Canyon. There's so many canyons in this area. This looks a little different. It's slightly different rock formations to the other sort of sandstone ones we've seen. This is Hopi Native American dwellings from 1100 AD. The canyon is 350 foot deep. You can hike around the rim and get some nice views, or you can hike down into the canyon. And what you'll see is a number of these cliff dwellings where people used to live. That you can see here and along there, and you can have a little look if you are prepared to hike down. But it is fairly, it's not so bad going down, but I think you'll probably need a few breaks coming back up because it is a little bit steep. But another easy place to visit for a few hours and learn a little bit about the local area. One thing you may not also be aware of is that Arizona is one of the best dark sky states in America. Flagstaff was actually the first place, first dark sky city, and there's now six dark sky communities in Arizona. That means you can see way more stars and things in the sky than you could in normal places. When I lived in Lake Powell, we regularly saw incredible constellations, but actually meteor showers as well, because the sky was so clear and there's no light pollution. So you definitely will be able to see lots of stars if that's something of interest to you. And in Flagstaff is the Lowell Observatory, which is one of the most sort of important observatories in the world. It was founded in 1894. It's very old, and it's a historic site. It was used as a focus for space exploration training for the astronauts on the Apollo mission. So it's got a really big history of being at the forefront of astronomy. And the Lowell Discovery Telescope is one of the most powerful in the world. So you can stop by there and learn all about space and the stars. And then Arizona, as I mentioned, has a skiing season. In Flagstaff mainly, this is called the Snow Bowl, which is the main kind of ski resort, or one of the main ski resorts. Flagstaff generally, and Arizona to a certain extent, but Flagstaff especially, is a real outdoorsy town. Skiing, cycling, golf, hiking, all manner of outdoor activities are possible in this area. If this is something that you're interested in, you could spend a few days here doing any number of trails and, going all around around the environment and seeing all the different things there. This ski resort is actually not that small. It's 770 acres and it's got 40 runs. So if you are in Arizona in the winter and fancy kind of getting away and doing a bit more of a cooler holiday, then you could twin your visits to the southern part of the country with different part of the state, which is warm. Can't even speak. Twin your visit with the southern part of the state, which is warm, with some skiing in Flagstaff. Okay, so now we're moving down just a short distance to our next stop. Sedona is only 40 minutes or so, but Sedona is one of my absolute favorite places in the whole world. The drive between Flagstaff and Sedona is 30 miles long, and 14 miles of that is a designated scenic drive, Oak Creek Canyon Scenic Drive. It is stunning. I've done this several times. I've done it about 3 or 4 times. Really beautiful. Red rock, very green trees, the babbling brook. It's amazing. This is a photograph of the creek and the red rock. There were 1,000 photos I could have shown you of this. When you get a big drop in elevation from Flagstaff to Sedona, so as you drive down, there's a series of switchbacks, but they're not scary, and you can stop, and there's overlooks where you can take photos. But actually, for me, the enjoyment is in the drive rather than necessarily one individual photo. Because I tried to find a photo that would capture that, and I don't think you can. I think you have to do the drive and just observe everything that you pass through. One of the things that you pass by before you get to Sedona is a very unique park called Slide Rock State Park. It's 43 acres on a historic apple farm, but the main attraction is a half a mile of the Oak Creek that has a naturally created water slide. You can't quite see in this picture, but these are it's basically like a natural slide, and people come here and they use it like a water park. It's encouraged, it's allowed, you know, they're not breaking any rules. They bring water tubes and lilos, and people sort of shoot down, you know, as they choose. The only thing to say is this water is very cold, and you need to be doing this later in this summer, in this late spring and summer. When we go in April, you'll probably be too cold to do it then. But a really, really popular place for kids, families, everyone, you know, loves to visit here. Something about Sedona, which it's hard to describe really. There's a special kind of energy about Sedona, and I'm not a particularly like woo-woo person, but there is definitely something about Sedona which has a different energy. I don't know whether it's like the rocks, the landscape, the trees, I don't know what it is, but it just feels like a really calm and relaxing place. But actually it's also kind of a bit of a new age mecca, so you'll see lots of shops selling crystals and incense and things like that, and lots of people, you know, kind of enjoying that kind of lifestyle. But there's also something here which is unusual, and you can find about it online, and they're called vortexes or vortices. There are 4 vortexes in Sedona, which are apparently, and I quote, swirling centers of energy that are conducive to healing, meditation, and self-exploration. So there are 4 designated specific areas where the energy is highest. And if you look, there's actually some evidence that plants, trees particularly, grow in that area, almost grow in like a spiral, which is like apparently the shape of the energy force. So whether you believe in that or not, I'm a bit on the fence. I will say that I never felt more calm and peaceful than I do when I'm in Sedona. There's just a lovely energy about the place. So even if you're not into that sort of thing, that's fine. But definitely visit it, if nothing else, for the absolutely incredible scenery. One of the other places to visit there is Red Rock State Park. Almost, when you get to the point when you're in Sedona, you almost have Red Rock fatigue, because there's just so much beautiful landscape and around every corner that you're almost like, oh yeah, there's another really beautiful thing to see. It just is that, there's just that much. Red Rock State Park is a great place to visit. It's a great place to go for sort of short hikes. It's a 286 acre nature reserve, and the Oak Creek meanders through the park, and it's a haven for wildlife as well. So if you like hiking, you like wildlife, and you like Red Rock State Park is the place to go. One of the most fun things to do in Sedona, though, is 4x4 jeeps and off-roading. We did this the last time we went. We went on a guided tour with a company called Pink Jeep Tours, but there are others. Or you can rent your own 4x4 and do designated trails, either in a group or individually. And they will take you right out to the backcountry. And again, you think like Sedona can't get any more beautiful, and then you go 5-10 miles back behind the town, and then there's a whole other layer of incredible scenery. And they will take you, if you go on the guided tours, on places like this, and they will step you down the rocks in a vehicle. You are literally like this, strapped in. It's very, very fun, and I would highly recommend it. Suitable for children as well. Obviously they need to be able to be strapped in properly, but yeah, really, really incredible. Absolutely my top recommendation for Sedona. And then the last thing, no, not the last thing. There are many other things to see in this area that I have not even touched on. You could stay in Sedona for a fortnight, and there are other state parks, there are ghost towns, there's wineries, there's the Verde Valley. There's so many things you could see from Sedona as a base, but I do not even have time to go through those today. But the last thing that I am going to talk about is something that you will definitely see when you're in Sedona, which is the Chapel of the Holy Cross. This is such a unique church. Whether you're religious or not, I would recommend a visit. It's really interesting. It's a Roman Catholic church built right into the sandstone. It was built in or completed in 1956 by a local sculptor who apparently was inspired by the Empire State Building. Now, I don't know how she got from that to this, but I'm no artist. Anyway, it is really interesting because like the cross is formed there as part of the landscape, and it's really in keeping with the style of Sedona. It's open to visitors. You can visit every day, but it's really limited parking. There's only like 45 spaces. So you can either get there really early and queue, and people do queue. Again, when I visited, it was not that popular, but it is now a place people are super keen to visit. Or in Arizona and in Sedona, they do have like trolley tours. You can just jump on, it'll take you kind of loops around Sedona, which we really like doing. And one of them will take you to the Chapel of the Holy Cross. You don't have to worry about parking. So that may be an option. And we're getting towards the end now. So, oh, forgot about that. Photo of me in Sedona. I think that was on our honeymoon. We're getting towards the end and back down to Phoenix to our final stop at Lost Dutchman State Park. But Phoenix is an enormous city. I would say, again, you know, you could spend a week in Phoenix. There are all the things you would expect to be able to do in a city. You know, there's shopping, dining, spas, incredible resorts. There's like water parks and theme parks and all those things. We're not doing any of those things because there's loads of other things that we want to do, but you could. But there are a couple of things which are specific to Phoenix that I just thought might be worth sharing. And one is the Musical Instrument Museum. It's the largest museum of its type in the world, and it's got 15,000 musical instruments from over 200 countries and territories in the world. So, you know, if you have any interest in music, this is a place to visit. And it's open, you know, most days. It's really great for kids. It's got sections. They've got two galleries, the Experience and the Encore Gallery, where they can try an instrument and make whatever noise they like. This is a picture of one of those areas. So the reviews of this are brilliant. I've never been, and everyone says that it is a fantastic place to visit. I don't know if we will have time to visit on our trip, but if we do, we definitely will, because I think it is somewhere quite unique and interesting. Another thing that I think you kind of must do when you're in Arizona, we looked at several places to visit, whether we were going to go to Tombstone or Jerome or one of those other ghost towns, but we just can't fit it in the itinerary that we're going to do. But all those things are brilliant things that you could add on. But we are going to go to a ghost town, Goldfield Ghost Town. It's an ex-mining area. It's right next door to the Lost Dutchman State Park, which is where we're going to stay. It's an historic town from the 1890s. It's a bit of a kind of Disney-fied ghost town area. It's free to go. You just pay for different attractions that you want to see, and you can do things like you can take a visit to the mine. You can go into the shops, the saloons. They have like a daily gunfight recreation. There's a zip line on site. There's also a narrow gauge railway, and they even do ghost tours at night. So if you want something a little bit more cheesy and American-fied, I think it's worth it just for an afternoon. And then the final place we're going to be going is to the Superstition Mountains. Apparently, after the Grand Canyon, this is the most photographed and painted landscape in Arizona. And it's just sort of 30 to 45 minutes outside of Phoenix. And you can understand why, because Phoenix is a massive, sprawling city. And, you know, it's very built up. But having these mountains really close by is somewhere people would like maybe pop to visit. There's loads of beautiful hiking trails, and Santa is especially popular, but please, again, be very careful. There are abandoned and sunken mines. Trails are not necessarily marked properly. And to get to a lot of these sort of, people do climb up here, you are talking like hands and knees climbing, not just kind of following a path. So a technical climbing to a lot of these. So do your research before you set out and start hiking up a mountain. We are going to stay at Lost Dutchman State Park, which is basically at the base of the Superstition Mountains. It is one of the most scenic campsites in Arizona that has full water and electric facilities. There are lots of places you can camp, and I'll talk more about that in my Arizona motorhome tour on talk on Monday. But there are places you can stay for free. But if you want electricity and water, you know, you are going to be in obviously more built up areas, but the Lost Dutchman State Park is somewhere really lovely that you can go and have all those things plus beautiful scenery. And I thought it would be a lovely place to kind of end our trip, really, you know, last sort of glimpse of the sun setting over the red rocks of the Superstition Mountains. And, you know, there's loads of wildlife in the state park: desert mules, coyotes, bobcats, cottontail, rabbits, roadrunners, etc. So yeah, one last chance to be in the countryside, I suppose, before we finish. And that is my 1 hour, just over 1 hour run through of my itinerary that we will be taking next year. As I have alluded to, they are not the only things to see in Arizona. There are way more things, but this, I think, covers everything. You've got landscapes, you've got culture, history, animals, fun things to do, you know, just like generally fun, silly things to do, like the gold mine and stuff. So I think it's got everything in, and we are really, really looking forward to it. So the purpose of doing this is obviously to share my joy with other people. But, you know, maybe I've inspired you to consider an Arizona road trip. It doesn't have to be this one. I would happily put you together something that would suit you perfectly, but this is just what we felt suited us. You can drop me a message via my Facebook page, which you must be aware of because you're watching this. You can also follow me on my VIP offers group. If you aren't a member and you don't know how to join there, drop a link in the comment, drop your note in the comments, and I will send you the link. I also do an occasional newsletter, which is about I usually do about once a fortnight, and then sometimes the odd one in between, to let people know things I'm doing. Again, send me a message or drop me a note in the comments if you aren't signed up to my newsletter, and we can make that happen. If you have any questions about Arizona, I am more than delighted to answer them for you. I hope you have enjoyed. Thank you if you stuck with me from the beginning to the end. And if you're catching up on replay, you're also very welcome. Please drop me a message in the comments. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye.